told the 815, same thing I'll say now. We have so much crammed into our service today, and so much going on throughout the day. I've been asked to kind of tighten things up a little bit, and so the best way I know how to do that is just to step over here to the side and tell you in a shorter way what I was going to tell you. If I could say one thing to you this morning, I think it would be this. I wish I could take you all by the hand and show you where I grew up. I actually grew up in a couple of places. One was Central Illinois, and the other was where I was born, was down in the Ozarks. And what I would show you down in the Ozarks would be a grandmother and a grandfather who loved me more than anything in the world. And it was the one thing that I needed. We lived on a little farm south of Springfield on the way down. Well, we lived between Springfield and Ozark. Ozark was the little town just probably about another 5 miles down Old 65. If you went another 20, 30 minutes, you'd hit Silver Dollar City. Maybe some of you have been there. But my grandparents, when my grandfather turned 65, he retired from 50 years of bricklaying. And about that same time, my uncle, who had built an international stainless steel fabricating company, walked in and just announced that he was retiring that day, and that he was coming home and going to buy a little farm down towards Ozark. And he and my grandfather were going to spend their remaining days raising Black Angus cattle. And that's what they did. I wish I could show you that what an idyllic place it was. We raised the cattle, we rebuilt all the buildings. There was a tire swing. I used to while away my hours just swinging until that one day and the rope snapped and down I went. I had horses, cats, dogs. I had all those critters. And it was a fun place to be, but mostly it was a safe and comfortable place for me to be. You see, when I was about 12, 13, my grandparents spoke with my parents and said they thought it might be best if I went to live with them for a while. The truth of it, and I don't want to make too much of this, but the truth of it is I was experiencing some physical abuse at home. And that's something no child should ever have to suffer. And so my grandparents thought that I might go live with them. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I no longer lived in fear. I no longer lived without loving parents that surrounded me and admired me. It was good. Well, sometimes I'd be at the farm and things would rise up inside of me and I would need to go take a walk. I'd grab my border collie and off we'd go. We'd go over the pastures and around the woods and over the hills and I would talk. I would talk to the Lord. And I told him what was going on and what I was feeling and what I needed, or at least I thought I needed. And what I needed more than anything was to know that I was loved and that I needed to try and move past some of my past. I went up to the mountain of the Lord to learn how to walk in his paths. And that's what provided me the strength to move beyond. I wanted to tell you about that today, but mainly within the context of Isaiah's words, and they ring so true for me. A picture that Isaiah paints of a time when we will beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks, meaning we will let go. A time when nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war and violence anymore. This is a time when peace and understanding shall rule the human hearts of those who have come to the mountain of the Lord, that God may teach us his ways and that we can learn to walk in his paths. There's lots of ways we can wage war against one another. Nations do, spouses do, friends do, even church members can do that as well. But as we begin this season of Advent, there's always such power for me in the symbol of a silent flame that fills more than all the words in the world could fill. It's steady, it's peaceful, it's calm, it's calling. It calls me. I hope it calls you. And this morning it's calling us to hope. The hope that comes from knowing God in our lives and knowing that there is reason to hope again and to know that there is someone who is in charge. I've kind of learned that there are some things in life that work as hard as you can with them. They come in their own time. And believe me, I worked really hard at moving beyond the anger and the pain. And I'm here to tell you this morning that I've been able to make peace with my past. It's not a perfect equation, but neither am I. And I've come to know that people, human beings, we're all kind of complex and complicated. And if we're able to go to the mountain of the Lord and to learn about his ways and allow that calmness to come into our lives, that our lives become so much bigger and better. I have to tell you that my grandparents have passed on. And the farm was sold to others. It's been changed from what it was. The tire swing is a memory in here now. And the cats and the horses, they find their place in there somewhere too. But whenever over the years, when I was going to school on whatever coast, back and forth, I'd always find time, a couple of times a year, to make my way home to the mountain of the Lord. And I just felt a greater sense of calmness and peace every mile along the way until I got there. I hope you have a mountain of the Lord in your life. I don't know if it would be the Gulf. I don't know if it would be a friend, a family member. I don't know where your mountain of the Lord would be. But I hope you have one. A place where you can tell your troubles. A place where you can find that someone who's waiting for you. And sometimes it comes in very surprising ways. The last time I made my way home to the mountain of the Lord, well, was for the funeral of my grandfather. And as I drove down Old 65 and drew close to the farm, I decided to go on by and go down for some lunch. I went on down to Ozark, you see, that little town that was always so magical for me, and I went to the town square. There's the old courthouse that sits on the square, and everybody parks on an angle around it, you know. And there's this place. It's called the Morningside Cafe. It was always my favorite. It's just a little hole in the wall, and they serve very exotic kinds of food like scrambled eggs, bacon, whole wheat toast, imagine that, and your choice of jam. I was standing at the door that day because it was all full. All the tables were taken. But like I had so many times before, I listened and I heard this one waitress give this apparently new customer a spiritual lesson. He called her over and he said, "Miss, what's this white glob on my plate?" And she goes, "Why, sir, those are grits." And he said, looking at the check, "But I didn't order grits." And she said, "Oh, sir, you don't order grits here. They just come." They just come. And I'm here to tell you this morning that grace just comes too. And mercy. And forgiveness. And in time, healing. Because God just comes too. This Advent, I hope you'll take my hand and walk with me to the mountain of the Lord. Because I'm going to learn how to better learn His ways and walk in His paths this year than ever before. May God bless you. And may God bless our dear United Church of Marco Island.